Welcome back to the League of Hustlers, where we cover all types of topics related to financial independence and creating side hustles and more. Today, we're going to be talking about the rich dad cash flow quadrant, all right? The cash flow quadrant developed by Rob. All right. This is your co host, HT,
I'm CD Barnes.
and get ready to prepare to prosper. You know how it goes. Sorry about that little lag right there. Moving forward, though, keeping it pushing. All right, first though, so if you haven't heard about the Rich Dad book series, company, all of that, it is a major game changer. All right, so Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is like phenomenal. Definitely suggested reading. Within that came this concept, right, called the cash flow quadrant, and it's designed to help us figure out how to move into creating passive income, right? And understand where we are and gain financial clarity, self awareness about where we are, and come up with a way to shift from active income to passive income. All right. And just to jump right into it, right? This is what quadrant looks like. Let's put it up here. Boom. All right. Yeah. So as you can see, you have 4 pieces of the quadrant, right? The E, S, B, and I. All right. And so most people start in the E. And that's what we're going to talk about first and foremost. So with the E, this stands for employee. So most people, right, enter into the workforce and start making money by means of a job, right? By being an employee, right? The problem with this um approach, right, is that your income is taxed, right, at a much higher level than any of the other quadrants, right? The other piece to this is that you're susceptible to economic downturns. You're reliant upon that job, right? If that job goes away, then your income goes away, right? So that's some of the potential downsides to the employee quadrant, right? Next up is self-employed. You wanna grab that, bro?
Yeah, so self-employed, similar to employee. However, you're employing yourself. So you have a job, but this is a job that you have created. So this is like a solopreneur, small business owner, right? Now the pros to this is that in this phase, you have a little bit more control over how much you can potentially earn, right? So as an employee, you're basically kind of have to you can negotiate to some degree, but there's already a fixed pay scale or a fixed pay range for that particular job. Being self-employed, of course, um, you're kind of bound by the market. However, you charge what you charge. All right. And you're based on that. However, the cons to this being in this phase, though, is that this could be long days for you, right? You could end up working long hours. And it's kind of like in this phase, you're basically a business owner, but in this phase, it's a lot of times people find like that their business actually owns them. And so
Right,
you wake up and you got to work because you have to stay on top of it. And
right.
you got to get the clients, you got to serve the clients, you got to count the money, you got to, you're kind of wearing all the hats being self-employed. Even if you have help, that's just one of those things. But the next phase, when you scale up being the business owner, you kind of solve some of those problems.
Yeah, man. So with the business owner, this is where your wealth building potential increases greatly, right? So, you may have been an employee, right? Then we looked at self-employment where, you're doing a lot of the work, but as a business owner, you're thinking about ways to create systems and processes to help you remove yourself from the situation, right? From the equation. Of course, there still has to be a level of risk involved. There still has to be a level of involvement involved, especially in the beginning, right? If you're starting up yourself, but the rewards for it, right? It's almost like you're duplicating yourself and you're making your life easier, right? By assigning other people to do certain tasks, right? That's involved with the business, or b also duplicating yourself and thereby able to earn more, right, for the business. Um, with a successful venture, you're looking at, making it scalable, right? The more you can duplicate yourself, the more you can duplicate the roles, the more potential earning power that you have, right? So at the B quadrant, the business owner quadrant, this is where you start creating those systems and you start seeing significant growth, right? Significant income increases, right? With self-employed, you're trading time for money, right? But as a business owner, and this is where I think a lot of people get it confused. They think just because they have a business that they're working themselves that they're a business owner. And it's like, not really. Like, yes, but technically no, right? As a business owner, we have to look at keyword scaling, right? Duplicating ourselves, scaling up, and being able to duplicate your efforts by means of either technology or an employee that you're hiring. All right. And then that would lead you into the last quadrant, which is where we all want to be. All right. And that's the investor quadrant.
Right. And so in the investor quadrant, right? Essentially, this is where your money is working for you. So now you're at the point where you're making money while you're asleep, you're making money while you're on vacation, you're making money while you're at the gym, you're making money while you're having dinner. So you've basically moved from employing people to actually employing dollars, which they
Right.
don't take days off, they don't need vacations, they don't. So this is like a 24/7 thing. Um, now, those are the pros. The cons to this is that it's if you make an investment, there is potential to lose that investment. However,
Right.
you can control this based on your risk strategy as as being an investor. So you can actually control that to some degree. And so just like
Right.
as a side note though, like looking at the arrows from one part of the quadrant to the next, this is like also this isn't the cash flow quadrant specifically, but if you're an employee, you can take the money that you have as an employee and start putting some of that to the side and be self-employed, invest in yourself being self-employed.
Exactly.
When you're self-employed, start taking some of that cash and start building a system around that, side hustle. Essentially, that's kind of, small business. Put systems in place, hire people, grow it, right? And turn it into a business. Take the money from the business, right? And now you're starting to put some of that into the market, into crypto, into real estate, into other businesses. And now you're an investor. And you don't have to live only in one of these quadrants. You can occupy all
Exactly.
four at the same time strategically. You should at least
Right.
occupy two of them at all times. Um, you can be an
Right.
employee and an investor, a self-employed and investor, business owner investor, but you could potentially occupy all four at the same time.
Yeah, man, and that's a key right there. What that last piece that you were talking about. Like all of us should be playing in the investor quadrant. I don't care if you work at, wherever, as an intern and you're making minimum wage, it doesn't matter. Or if you're a CEO making millions of dollars, we should all be playing in the investor quadrant. So even if you're at a minimum wage job, you should be putting money into the stock market, putting money into investments, putting it aside. Maybe you can't, buy a whole piece of real estate yet, but you're putting money aside with that intention. Okay. So like CD was saying, we all want to be playing in that investor quadrant. And then the whole idea is to get to the point where there's so much money in the investor quadrant that it pays for your whole life, right? And that's basically what retirement is, right? And this is how people
Right.
retire early. Okay. So of don't be discouraged if you're in E, S, or B. Like if you're an employee, it's fine, right? You see a clear path of how to get out of there, right? If you want to get out of there, some people don't want to get out of there. Some people want to stay in there and just level up their skills until they get a high paying job, right? And then they take that money and put it in the investing quadrant. You see what I'm saying? So just understand that you can move throughout all of these, but we should all be playing in the investment quadrant. All right. And that's it for this episode. As always, hit us up if you have questions at leagueofhustlers.com. And let's get it. Let's go. Follow for more. Cheers.